The man who desired gold. Bansir, the chariot builder of Babylon, was thoroughly discouraged. From his seat upon the low wall surrounding his property, he gazed sadly at his simple home and the open workshop in which stood a partially completed chariot. His wife frequently appeared at the open door. Her furtive glances in his direction reminded him that the meal bag was almost empty and he should be at work finishing the chariot. Hammering and heaving, polishing and painting, stretching taut the leather over the wheel rims, preparing it for delivery so he could collect from his wealthy customer. Nevertheless, his fat, muscular body sat sturdily upon the wall. His slow mind was struggling patiently with a problem for which he could find no answer. The hot tropical sun, so typical of this valley of the Euphrates, beat down upon him mercilessly. Beads of perspiration formed upon his brow and trickled down unnoticed to lose themselves in the hairy jungle of his chest. Beyond his home towered the high terrace walls surrounding the king's palace. Nearby, cleaving the blue heavens, was the painted tower of the Temple of Bel. In the shadow of such grandeur was his simple home and many others far less neat and well cared for. Babylon was like this, a mixture of grandeur and squalor, of dazzling wealth and direst poverty, crowded together without plan or system within the protecting walls of the city. Behind him, had he cared to turn and look, the noisy chariots of the rich jostled and crowded aside the sandaled tradesmen as well as the barefooted beggars. Even the rich were forced to turn into the gutters to clean the way for the long lines of slave water carriers on the king's business, each bearing a heavy goatskin of water to be poured upon the hanging gardens. Bansir was too engrossed in his own problem to hear or heed the confused hubbub of the busy city. It was the unexpected twanging of the strings from a familiar lyre that aroused him from his reverie. He turned and looked into the sensitive, smiling face of his best friend, Kobi, the musician. "May the gods bless you with great liberality, my good friend," began Kobi with an elaborate salute. "Yet it does appear they have already been so generous you do not need to labor. I rejoice with you in your good fortune. More, I would even share it with you. Pray, from your purse which must be bulging, else you would have been busy in your shop, extract but 2 humble shekels and lend them to me until after the nobleman's feast this night. You will not miss them until they are returned." "If I did have 2 shekels," Bansir responded gloomily, "to no one could I lend them, not even to you, my best of friends, for they would be my fortune, my entire fortune. No one lends his entire fortune, not even to his best friend." "What?" exclaimed Kobi with genuine surprise. "You do not have 1 shekel in your purse, yet sit like a statue upon a wall? Why not complete the chariot? How else can you provide for your noble appetite? You are not like this, my friend. Where is your endless energy? Did something distress you? Have the gods brought you troubles?" "A torment from the gods it must be," Bansir agreed. "It began with a dream, in which I thought I was a man of means. From my belt hung a handsome purse, heavy with coins. There were shekels which I cast with careless freedom to the beggars. There were pieces of silver with which I did buy finery for my wife and whatever I did desire for myself. There were pieces of gold which made me feel assured for the future and unafraid to spend the silver. A glorious feeling of contentment was within me. You would not have known me for your hard-working friend, nor would you have known my wife, so free from wrinkles was her face and shining with happiness. She was again the smiling maiden of our early married days." "A pleasant dream, indeed," commented Kobi. "But why should such pleasant feelings as it aroused turn you into a glum statue upon the wall?" "Why, indeed, because when I awoke and remembered how empty my purse was, a feeling of rebellion swept over together. For, as the sailors do say, we ride in the same boat, we two. As youngsters, we went to the same priest to learn wisdom. As young men, we shared each other's pleasures. As grown men, we have always been close friends. We have been contented subjects of our kind. We have been satisfied to work long hours and spend our earnings freely. We have earned much coins in the years that have passed, yet to know the joys that come from wealth, we must dream about them. Are we more than dumb sheep? We live in the richest city of all the world. The travelers do say none equals it in wealth. About us is much display of wealth, but it we have not. After half a lifetime of hard labor, you, my best of friends, have an empty purse and say to me, 'May I borrow such a trifle as 2 shekels until after the nobleman's feast this night?' Then what do I reply? Do I say, 'Here is my purse, its contents will I gladly share'? No, I admit that my purse is as empty as yours. What is the matter? Why cannot we acquire silver and gold, more than enough for food and robes? Consider also our sons, Bansir continued. Are they not following in the footsteps of their father? Need they and their families and their sons' families live all their lives in the midst of such treasures of gold, and yet, like us, be content to banquet upon sour goat's milk and porridge? Never in all the years of our friendship did you talk like this before, Bansir. Koby was puzzled. Never in all those years did I think like this before. From early dawn until darkness stopped me, I have labored to build the finest chariots any man could make, soft-heartedly, hoping someday the gods would recognize my worthy deeds and bestow upon my grace prosperity. This they have never done. At last I realize this they will never do. Therefore my heart is sad. I wish to be a man of means. I wish I owned lands and cattle, to have fine robes and coins in my purse. I am willing to work for these things with all my strength in the back, with all the skill in my hand, with all the cunning in my mind. But I wish my labors to be fairly rewarded. What is the matter with us? Again I ask you. Why cannot we have our just shares of the good things so plentiful for those who have the gold with which to buy them? Would I knew an answer, Koby replied. No better than you am I satisfied. My earnings from my lyre are quickly gone. Often must I plan and scheme that my family be not hungry. Also within my breast is a deep longing for a lyre large enough that it may truly sing the strains of music that do surge through my mind. With such an instrument could I make music finer than even the king has heard before. Such a lyre you should have. No man in all Babylon could make it sing more sweetly, could make it sing so sweetly not only the king but the gods themselves would be delighted. But how would you secure it while we both are as poor as the king's slaves? Listen to the bell, here they come. He pointed to the long column of half-naked, sweating water barriers plodding laboriously up the narrow street from the river. 5 abreast they marched, each bent under a heavy goatskin of water. A fine figure of a man, he who does lead them, Koby indicated the wearer of the bell who marched in front without a load. A prominent man in his own country, it's easy to see. There are many good figures in the line, Bansir agreed, as good men as we. Tall, blond men from the north, laughing black men from the south, little brown men from the nearer countries, all marching together from the river to the gardens, back and forth, day after day, year after year. Not of happiness to look forward to, beds of straw upon which to sleep, hard-grained porridge to eat. Pity the poor brutes, Koby. Pity them I do, yet you do make me see how little better off are we, free men though we call ourselves. That is truth, Koby, unpleasant thought though it be. We do not wish to go on year after year living slavish lives, working, getting nowhere. Might we not find out how others acquire gold and do as they do? Koby inquired. Perhaps there is some secret we might learn if we but sought from those who knew, replied Bansir thoughtfully. This very day, suggested Koby, I did pass our old friend Arkad riding in his golden chariot. This I will say he did not look over my humble head as many in his station might consider his right. Instead, he did wave his hand that all onlookers might see him pay greetings and bestow his smile of friendship upon Koby the musician. He is claimed to be the richest man in all Babylon, Bansir mused. So rich the king is said to seek his golden aid in affairs of the treasury, Koby replied. So rich, Bansir interrupted, I fear if I should meet him in the darkness of the night, I should lay my hands upon his fat wallet. Nonsense, reproved Koby. A man's wealth is not in the purse he carries. A fat purse quickly empties if there is no golden stream to refill it. Arkad has an income that constantly keeps his purse full, no matter how liberally he spends. Income, that is the thing, agreed Bansir. I wish an income that will keep flowing into my purse whether I sit upon the wall or travel to far lands. Arkad must know how a man can make an income for himself. Do you suppose it is something he could make clear to a mind as still his mind? I think he did teach his knowledge to his son Nomaser, Koby responded. Did he not go to Nineveh, and so it is told at the end become without aid from his father, one of the richest men in the city? Koby, you brought me a rare thought, a new light gleamed in Bansir's eye. It costs nothing to ask wise advice from a good friend, and Arkad was always that. Never mind though our purses be as empty as the falcon's nest of a year ago, let that not detain us. We are weary of being without gold in the midst of plenty. We wish to become men of means. Come, let's go to Arkad and ask how we also may acquire income for ourselves. You spoke with true inspiration, Bansir. You brought to my mind a new understanding. You made me realize the reason why we have never found any measures of wealth. We never sought it. You have labored patiently to build the staunchest chariots in Babylon. To that purpose was devoted your best endeavors. Therefore, at it you did succeed. I strove to become a skillful lyre player, and at it I did succeed. In those things toward which we exerted our best endeavors, we succeeded. The gods were content to let us continue thus. Now, at last, we see a light bright like that from the rising sun. It bids us to learn more that we may prosper more. With a new understanding, we shall find honorable ways to accomplish our desires. Let us go to Orkad this very day, Bansir urged. Also, let us ask other friends from our boyhood days who have fared no better than ourselves to join us that they too may share in his wisdom. You are ever thus thoughtful of your friend, Bansir. Therefore you have many friends. It shall be as you said. We go this day and take them with us.